everybody to Sierra Club Holiday Party. Last year we did an awards event called the Transit Equity Award, where we give awards to people who have been expanding access to transportation in Vermont. And because of our campaign funding, we weren't able to honor any legislators in that particular award. So our transportation team, who here is a member of our transportation team? Thank you all, thank you all, thank you all. Good. Decided that we would like to do an award, and we would like to do it in person. And Sierra Club was still restricted from doing in-person events all summer long, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh wait, we can do a holiday party. And then all of a sudden, well, we can do our holiday party and our award ceremony at the same time, so hence we're combining it together. Otherwise, we would have done this in a much bigger fashion, because I think the award is deserving to be much more public and recognized, but unfortunately because of COVID, we all have to be safe and have limited numbers. So, that all said, I'm going to pause for a second, because before I actually give the award, I'm going to let Representative Mike McCarthy say a couple words about our award winner, and let him say based on somebody else's thoughts. And then I'll go into one more final thoughts. So, Representative Mike McCarthy.
So, thanks, Rob. Thank you. So, I've been in the trenches with Representative McCormack and with Rob and fellow climate activists for the last few years, and we've made some really big strides, in large part because in the last biennium we had Representative McCormack at the helm of the Transportation Committee and made some huge changes that have steered a new course for how we prioritize spending on climate priorities in our transportation budget. And that's because of his advocacy and his effort, and I'm pretty sure that's why he's getting this award. I had the good or misfortune to become part of the House leadership team and become the hall monitor, the whip, and join Jill Kowinski, our speaker, on House leadership. Jill happens to be Curt's district mate, and she sent me here with a few words of congratulations, so I'm gonna do my best Jill Kowinski impression. So she wanted to say, congratulations, Curt, on receiving the recognition from the Vermont Sierra Club transportation team. As you all know, Curt and Jill are district mates and friends, and so she's attended the Curt McCormack School on climate change and transportation, and he does educate all of us. I can confirm that. His leadership on transportation and how we reduce fossil fuel emissions has been critical to our work in tackling climate change in the legislature. So grateful for his persistence and commitment, and we are so lucky to have Curt's voice in the House. Curt, congratulations, and a big thanks to Rob for your leadership and to the Sierra Club. Be well and stay safe. Jill, thanks for giving me and Jill by proxy a minute. And congratulations, Curt.
Thank you, Representative McCarthy. Representative McCarthy introduced me with somebody else in a conversation just earlier as being a co-conspirator. So I kind of like that when I have leadership folks like that who are co-conspirators. But I'm going to give a lot of credit to Representative McCormack. For those who didn't know that, when for a while Representative McCormack used to live next door to me in Mount Delier when they were in session. And there were multiple times that he actually borrowed my bike. So that was like my bribery, he used my bike. He didn't use my fancy car. I don't have a fancy car, but he used my bike. And I was always kind of amazed that he was one of the few representatives who didn't have a car. And so he wasn't just preaching about, we got to get out of our personalized automobiles. He is. And he's living day to day. He bikes around the country, around the whole Vermont. He bikes to the train, takes Amtrak down to New York to visit his daughter, and so he's living on this. And I think that is something that just shows his dedication to beliefs in these issues. So it's not just some political grandstanding. He really thinks we need to move forward on this. So I was honored to live next door to him. But then when I heard that this little rumor that he was possibly becoming the House Transportation Committee chair, I called him up and I said, "Is it true?" He goes, "Yeah, I think maybe." And he goes, "Hey, you know, would you like to be the 12th member of the committee?" And basically, it was great because I actually, in 2008, had interned at House Transportation Committee. And in that time frame, I never heard the word climate change addressed at all in Transportation Committee at all. Never. Nobody heard. There was like a whole day where we sat in there, testimony after testimony was all about addressing climate change. But it's not just about him making more burdens on people. He understands about what it is like to connect with the transit. He pushed for me to be involved in the committee to advance public transit in Vermont because he wants to see these solutions work. And he goes, "I need somebody on there who's fighting for this." So for me to give an award to anybody else, I think he's so deserving. He pushes the envelope, and he's asking for everybody's support to move the issues and make sure we're acting bolder, not just passively on these issues. So it is my pleasure to give this little award to Representative Curt McCormack. And I'm going to apologize, Curt. It's only a piece of paper. Somebody suggested we put it in a nice frame and get a plaque made, and I said, no, Curt clearly lives values, so I didn't want to give him like this big plaque that's just going to sit on a wall and collect dust. So it's just a simple piece of paper. But we do have a Sierra Club calendar for you. And a Drive Electric bag here under the award. So.
You got great ears, Curt.
Yeah, fantastic. Paul Newman ears.
I think we all love your ears.
Well, I know I'm looking like Paul Newman again since I'm not wearing glasses.
That's right.
It's supposed to agree.
Yes. Yes.
Take out your phone and look for a picture of him, and you'll see I look just like him. I want to say that Rob, I do remember these conversations with Rob very much because we needed someone, an advocate, to be in the room like all the time. And in the old days, years ago, I represented Rutland in the legislature in the late 80s and 90s, and I chaired the Natural Resources and Energy Committee then. And there was a lobbyist, maybe none of you know, Dave, I don't even know if you remember Joan Mulhern. Beaver. But she had the kind of dedication like Rob does. She lived in the room. And that must be awfully boring, and that was before people had laptops on their laps and before they had phones. But we needed that, and Rob was the only, he's still the only one. And that's very, very, very important. Yeah, you know, when I first became chair, the thing the media was so interested in was I didn't have a car. And I got another 15 minutes of fame. It actually went nationwide, an NPR story about it. And it's really interesting because it's not that big of a deal to me. And if you didn't know this, there's no reason you would. I get this from the Census Bureau. 32% of the households in my district do not have a car or access to one, and probably never will. So it's not that weird. It might be weird in the State House and among committee chairs, but it's not in the public. I'm actually writing a book that I started about 15 years ago, and its theme has changed. Now it's becoming how to live without a car in America, or something like that. how it can be done in a rural state. And you know, when you're writing a book, you have to do a lot of research. It's not like making a speech or even just writing a letter to the editor. You got to make sure it's all correct, right? So I'm doing a lot of research, and I'm sorry, but I can't help but point things out to my friends when I learn so much about like how ridiculous the SUV is, how ridiculous it is that people think they need four-wheel drive. Totally stupid, less safe, pollutes more, the works. And but I do point out to friends when they do a little thing like, Dave, you might remember when you first became Lieutenant Governor, I was walking out of the State House and Dave was getting in this little car, and sorry, I had a standard shift. I said, Dave, I don't think we've had a Lieutenant Governor with a standard shift car in years. Because even he replaced Governor Scott, who you would think would have a standard shift, but he didn't. He had an enormous pickup truck. I don't know what he drives now. Wheels and drive. But he had an enormous pickup truck with an automatic transmission. So, oh, you have an automatic now?
Not yet.
Okay, how about an SUV?
No.
Okay, good man. So I really very much appreciate this. You don't have any awards.
So question, is he
Yes.
automatic or
I'll take questions.
Which is better? Well, I mean, is it bad? Was it bad to have a stick shift? Or good to have a stick shift?
No, it's good. They've come a long way with automatics. They get almost a good gas mileage. But back when you bought yours, it was way to go. Plus, it's more fun. It's, you know, it's just, the automatic was stupid.
And you're very four-wheel
Power
drive.
windows, all stupid. All stupid, and they all cost something. Usually at the gas station, especially the SUV. So I don't know, hope I'm not insulting anyone that's just bought one. 80% of new car sales in the US now are SUVs.
Oh my God.
Which is, can you imagine if the SUV con job never happened? How much fuel would have been saved in this country? And it was con job. Let me tell you a little bit about it and the SUV started when car manufacturers pulled the engineers into their corporate board meetings, and they figured out that there were some SUVs. It was an International Scout had one for people that wanted four-wheel drive because of where they drove. By the way, surveys indicate that virtually no one who purchases an SUV ever takes it off-road. And how many of them live up a hill so steep that they needed to get up in the snow? Very, very, very. Okay, well, there's some, but not 80%. It's probably less than 1. So the SUV came about because, for some reason, Detroit had that market cornered, as usual. When it comes to nice, efficient cars, nobody. That's Korea, Japan, Germany, not the U.S. The ones that we made money on were the big cars, just like we make money on the big pickup trucks now. So the SUV enjoyed 3 major loopholes in the law. And I don't know what the status of this is now, but it came about because, one, the CAFE standards, that's the corporate average fleet efficiency, gas mileage the cars have to get. At the time, it was average had to be 27.5 miles to the gallon. The SUV average could be as low as, it was as low as 20.5. Safety, different safety standards, believe it or not. They are not held to the same safety standards, they are lower standards. And the other one is ground-based air pollution, the so-called EPA criteria pollutants. They have a lower standard there. The SUV pollutes more, it's less safe, and it's really less safe. People think they're safe, they're less safe. They roll much more easily because they're too high. And when you're on the interstate in the wintertime, like I used to be when I commuted from Brooklyn, when you saw a car off the road, what kind of car was it? It was always an SUV. And it was rolled over on its side, SUV, usually without a state plates, because these people think they can go fast because they have four-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive does not help you in snow at all. It doesn't help you slow at all. This has been tested. This is what I get to research. It spins out more easily than front-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive is probably the worst. Front-wheel drive is the best. The rear wheels follow like a wagon, like a kid's wagon. They just follow. they don't have inertia on them to give you that fishtail. Rear-wheel drive does, and four-wheel drive does. Okay, enough on that. So at least I found something good to talk about, and I do thank you very, very much, and I will frame this with something. With a used frame, I'll find out. Okay.